I have to keep going here. I don't know what's going on. Okay, fine. Next, Uman Yalef Me Ani. So the one who learns that the correct, or this shita in the Gemara and Brachos, that we don't pitch Kriya Shema on the time that the Kohanim come in to eat their truma. That's the Mishnah. But this other opinion, this other shita, is that no, that it's really from Ani, the time that the Ani comes in to eat his bread. Now, what is that supposed to mean? When is the Ani eating his bread relative to the time that the Kohanim are coming to eat their truma? The Kohanim are eating their truma at Seisa Kochavim. When it's nightfall, now they're tahor. When is the Ani eating his bread? It's hard for us to imagine. But one of the things, if the Ani is barely able to eke out a meager enough living to afford bread, or he went being chayzer al psachim, asking, knocking door to door and collecting some bread, what he may not have is a way of illuminating his Suda. So he's eating at an earlier time of day because he needs to use whatever latent daylight may still be available. Uman de Yalef me Ani. So the one who learns that Kriya Shema is supposed to be linked to the Su'uda of the Ani.
He's eating first thing in the morning?
He's eating at night. We're talking about Kriya Shema Shel Iris. So he's eating later at night, but he's eating first in the sense that it's still the waning hours of daylight, so that he can still see the bread in front of his face. B'das she'ein lo ner, because he doesn't have a candle. L'ha'ir einei sichlo. He doesn't have light. So what does it mean to link Kriya Shema to a time when somebody doesn't have light? It means that our minds are not illuminated, that we don't necessarily have clear seichel. We don't necessarily have all the light. I can't see things so clearly. I'm not necessarily on that level. Kriya Shema is going to be a much more basic expression of emunah, almost like emunah pshuta, where I recognize HaKadosh Baruch Hu, even though my seichel might not be so well honed. And after all, he's eating a very simple meal. Kriya Shema is supposed to be something simple. It's supposed to be a declaration. I know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is here. Prove it. Philosophize around it. What are the theological underpinnings of the statement that you just made? How do you know that it's true? And what method are you using in order to discern that it's actually valid? I don't have that. It's linked to Ani, because it's not supposed to be a discourse on philosophy. It's supposed to be the basic understanding expressed by the simple Jew that I know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is here and I know that He's one. That's one shita. That this is ideally what Kriya Shema is supposed to be. Kriya Shema is it's like the meal for the masses. Is there Talmud Torah that's more sophisticated? Is there Talmud Torah that's of a higher level? Is there Talmud Torah where you go more in depth and it involves more lamdos and more eon and it requires sharpening and the honing of one's mind? Yes. But Kriya Shema is supposed to be something that everybody can access. So hence it's linked to the most simple of any Seudah that you could possibly eat. It's one shita. That's one approach to what Kriya Shema is supposed to be. Number one. Number two, Reb Tzadok suggests that it's the other shita is that it's the normative Seudah. It's when most people are eating. When most people are eating, which is presumably a little bit later. The gam kain enam tzrichim tara. If regular people are eating, it means that it's the sort of Seudah that doesn't demand tara in advance. You don't have to purify. It's not like the Kohanim eating their truma. It's not like you have to purify yourself in order to be able to eat. It's not like I'm on such a holy, high, exalted sort of level. I'm a regular person. I might have greater faculties honed in the interest and in the forged in the ways of Torah. I might be more adept at articulating why it is that I believe in HaKadosh Baruch Hu and everything that I've learned about Hashem and in His mitzvahs, but I'm still not at a point of full-on Tara that I'm going to the mikvah before and that I'm completely purifying myself.
Why not say Kriya Shema all night then? Wouldn't it be more tied to like Hanukkah, like when?
Why would it be capped? I'm not sure.
No one eats at 3 o'clock in the morning, but you can say Shema, Kriya Shema.
See, there are other. This is so challenging. Meaning, in when you're, I don't know where and how exactly this begins and ends, right? Meaning, once you start darshaning, I don't know the point at which you say, oh yeah, and actually that also fits, because if you really think about it, or how much is it just that there are multiple ideas here that are all being almost like crammed together and encapsulated in one mitzvah. Spoke about it before, that there's a difference between Kriya Shema Shel Shachris and Kriya Shema Shel Arvis. Arvis lasts much longer. because it's night and it's dark, and when things are dark outside, you have to have the opportunity, you have to be able to avail yourself of the opportunity to remind yourself of that emunah more frequently. Does that go hand in hand necessarily with this? I don't know, maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe this is one aspect of it. There's the Haskalas Hazman that says something about the kind of seuda that you're eating, the kind of spiritual sustenance that you're gaining. And the idea of lasting all night is maybe something else. I'm not sure. It's hard to know, like, once you start darshaning, do you incorporate every single element into that? I don't know exactly. It's a little bit like medrash, right? Like there are midrashim that we forget about this. There are midrashim that are seiser one another. But there are midrashim that are completely at odds with one another. And we remember like one version, one midrash that becomes very popular, usually because Rashi quotes it. And then we're like off and running that is actually what happened. And there's a machlokes. It doesn't mean that they can necessarily both be true. It might actually be a machlokes, but they're both true in the sense that there are multiple ideas, there are multiple wavelengths, there are different ways of looking at it and thinking at it. Even if only one of them could factually have happened, could historically have happened, right?
So like if you believe all Chazal, then
right, Agadata, the Ramban says something like that if you believe that like every story like actually happened, then you're a shaitan. If you believe that they couldn't have happened, then you're a kafir, right? So you need to go in with that like, what do I know about the way that Hashem runs the universe and the way that the world used to look? But at the same time, I don't know that it really, like, it's an important thing, because otherwise you just end off with okay, like shkayach. So that weird thing happened, and then it doesn't matter if it happened or it didn't. The point is that there's like a lesson there, and you fall short of that because you end with, okay, I guess they're telling me historically this is what happened, and therefore I don't have to bother deriving a lesson. They might not be telling you it's what happened at all, but that is a legitimate way of interpreting the pasuk, and the pasuk is written that way in order to convey something. So it may be similar when it comes to the style of drush, but at the very least. So he says an interesting thing though. Rov b'nei Adam, they do require one thing. They require rak mesinos ktsas, a little bit of waiting. When people are eating, they're not eating the same way that we characterize the eating of the Kohanim, that they have to go through this process of Tara, they have to purify themselves. Krishma is not meant to be that. It's not meant to be that we have this huge ramp up necessarily, where we're purifying ourselves in every machshava, and we're so completely ensconced in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's presence and in his das. What it does demand, though, is that we're not, the ani, understandably, he's under duress, but the ani is a little bit headstrong, right? The ani is kind of like rushing into his su'ud a little bit. He has to, but he is, as opposed to Rov b'nei Adam. I might not have to have so much seichel. I might not have to have so much das. It could be that, yes, even for me, like I don't know kol haTorah kulin. I don't know all those halachas, and I don't know all those masechtas, and I don't know nigla and nistar. I don't know. What do I know? I know very, very little. Okay, but stop and breathe. Stop and think. Create a little bit of margin between yourself and the performance of that mitzvah. Recognize what you're about to step into. Realize that you are doing something of gravity. What is it? In what way does it resonate with you? Are you giving it a chance and an opportunity to resonate with you? They say that that's really Hashem Svasai Tiftachu V'Yagid Tilasecha, not part of like the original, the real text, the original text of Shemona Esrei, right? But it's added, and it's critical that it's added in that moment. That's like if we just pause, the idea of taking 3 steps back and taking 3 steps forward and having a little line that you say before Shemona Esrei, just that little bit of space, that little bit of margin that helps you psych yourself up for, I'm about to do something really important, really incredible. I'm about to stand in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's presence, or remind myself that presence exists at least. A little bit of margin, a little bit of space between whatever I was previously doing before Shachris, before Ma'ariv, and right now. So Rav Tzadok says that that's this next Shita. That's what Kriya Shema is supposed to be. Shita 1, it's mamish hamayin am, the masses, the unwashed masses who have absolutely no clue their right from their left. Kriya Shema still applies to them, and maybe B'davka applies to them. Maybe that's who the mitzvah is really for, and it's supposed to be just this expression of Emunah Pshuta. Shita 2 is, okay, you might not need to know everything. You might not need to be, such a part of the real spiritual hoi polloi, but pause. Pause before you engage in a mitzvah. At least that much anybody could do. That's Shita 2. Shita 3 is that it's linked to Leil Shabbos. Su'uda Shabbos. L'chad man da'amar kibulele Shabbos. This is supposed to happen on Leil Shabbos. What does Leil Shabbos mean? It means that things have already been prepared, right? It's not the mad dash where, I don't know if this happens in your house. It doesn't happen in my house either. But where, like, at some point, I don't know, 5:30, like, look at each other. Who's doing dinner? Like, what's happening? Who's doing what? It's Shabbos. You're going to Shabbos. Everything's whatever. You straightened it all out. I don't know. Thursday night already, you started to think, or I don't know, the Sunday morning, you started thinking about, menu planning and what's happening and what you're doing. Everything is already prepared by the time you come into Shabbos, as opposed to during the week where things are not quite as settled and prepared. So there's even more of a gap. There's more mesinos. There's more deliberation. There's more calm. There's more margin in advance of that Seuda, and the Seuda, in this case, symbolizing Kriya Shema. Everything's already prepared. Saying that the hachana that I make for Kriya Shema, it's sufficient if it was done previously during the day, and also maybe that it needs to be done during the day. Meaning it doesn't have to be necessarily that you are engaged in an act of meditation immediately prior to Kriya Shema, but that the day should, to some degree or another, be like leading up to it, right? If like we thought every time you have a client, a customer, a difficult business nisayon, a bit of lashon hara, reading gossip, looking at the right thing, looking at the wrong thing, etc., over the course of your day, if you recognize that, remember, this is all a hachana for what's coming up later tonight. I'm going to be sitting in shul at some point later tonight, and I'm going to be saying, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Will I be able to look back at this as being a hachana for that? This was a preparation for that? Or am I going to look back at this and be totally embarrassed by what took place? And there's complete cognitive dissonance between the person that I am now and the person that I know that I'm going to be in a few hours when I'm supposed to be putting my hand over my eyes and saying Kriya Shema. So it doesn't need anything, meaning it doesn't need necessarily special, meditative, stop, pause, consider, halt. But it means is that the way that I live my life should naturally serve, I think this is what he's saying, should naturally serve as a hachana for that. Meaning, hold yourself accountable throughout the day as someone who is later on in the day going to be reciting Kriya Shema. I'm going to be saying those words. If the record of what I've done over the course of my day starts flashing on a screen behind me while I'm saying Kriya Shema, I'm saying Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. But 2 hours ago, 3 hours, but the way that you treated that person, the way you cut off that person, the way that you mouthed off at that person, the way you spoke lashon hara about that person. So it doesn't mean that in order to say Kriya Shema, I need to have special kavanah. The mitzvah of Kriya Shema, that I have to sit and think, and what is that? And what is Yichud Hashem? What does it mean to declare Hashem's oneness? Don't necessarily need that. But it means that the body of work that I've completed leading up to that moment has to jive, has to fit. How do we paskin? When can you say Kriya Shema?
It's about Kriya Shema.
Zman Kriya Shema, when is that? 6:06. Say it more. When is that? Tzeis Kochavim, which the Mishnah links with Kohanim. So it's all very nice, but we don't paskin that way. Now, I don't believe the Reb Tzaddik is saying that. I just want to lay out all the different shitas, just so we don't paskin and therefore we can completely disregard. I think the idea is that these are various streams to consider when you think about Kriya Shema. Kriya Shema can be for the person who has doesn't know his right from his left. Somebody walks into shul and doesn't have a yarmulke on, and they're totally confused and they're baffled by what's going on. They don't look like they belong. And what are you doing here? Oh, I don't know. I called the rabbi earlier. I said I have a yard site for my father. Okay, fine. So you can. No, Kriya Shema is designed for that person. Kriya Shema is here for that person. And Kriya Shema is here for the other person who's capable of taking that next step where it might be a total ignoramus, but I'm ready to engage in a mitzvah and in Kriya Shema by pausing, by considering, by stopping, by thinking about my relationship with Hashem. And it also applies to the next person, another rung up, whose body of work over the course of that day preceding Kriya Shema actually jives with the words that he's going to say. Maybe he hasn't been sitting in Kollel, hasn't been sitting in the Beis Medrash, hasn't been, running a chesed empire. kapashat, I got up in the morning and I did my thing and I went to work and I ate my lunch and I said my brachos and I benched and I davened mincha in the corner of my office and I did everything that I was supposed to do because I knew that I was later on tonight going to recite Kriya Shema. And maybe Halavai, I was also remembering the Kriya Shema that I recited in the morning. It's for that person also. I think what he's saying is that we paskin that at least ideally we should be reaching for more. And that's really what we did last week. We did last week unpacking every single bit of what does it mean to be, or 2 weeks ago at this point, being Makabel Ol Malchus Shemayim, b'shleimus. What is it? It means that you rid yourself of all the schmutz and you turn over a new leaf and you turn the page on whatever mistakes you've made and you wash your hands and it's Natilas Yadayim. I'm removing my vested interests from the world and then I'm saying Kriya Shema and then I'm actually standing before HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the ideal. That's the ideal. And he says that's wrapped up in this statement that it's supposed to be like the Kohanim coming to be Metaher themselves. Halacha kakohanim. It's like the Kohanim. Shehem habatlanim mikol inyanei olam hazeh. What do the Kohanim do? Any Kohanim here? Good. What do the Kohanim do? Nothing. Leeches on society, which is exactly how it should be. It's a welfare state for Kohanim because they're supposed to be engaged in their own Limud HaTorah and in Talmud Torah, Klape, everybody else, and in running the Beis HaMikdash and performing all the avoda. She'en lahem ela Esak HaTorah, that's all they have. There the Rambam talks about how anybody could opt into Shevet Levi and the Kahuna and can become, a learner even without being an earner. Make sure your wife signs on the dotted line for that. V'chein shamati, I don't mean make sure she does. I mean make sure if you're going to that she's under no duress to sign on the dotted line for that. V'achilasim kodesh laHashem. The food that they eat is kodesh. The special food that they eat requires additional sanctity, additional tara, tzrichim tara. V'kach leKriya Shema nifne v'noitel yadav, as he spoke about previously, that in order to properly be makabel malchus shamayim, in order to really say Kriya Shema properly, rid yourself of all the shmutz, remove yourself from Olam Hazeh, you're not really part of this world, you're noitel yadav, wash your hands, but you're removing your hands, you're removing your negios, you're removing your vested interests. As I wrote previously. I think it's so beautiful and sweeping, first of all, just because of how, I hope this doesn't sound irreverent, just because of how creative it is. It's so incredibly creative to look at this Gemara. I've learned this Gemara, it's the first daf in Brachos. I've learned this Gemara, 25 times. I never thought, it never occurred to me anything about, because it's interesting. It's always linked to food. Why food? And then if it ever did occur to me, it probably made, the snickering comment that Jews always thinking about food. Always, they tried to kill us. We won. Let's eat, always. It's a fascinating idea that again and again and again, Kriya Shema is linked to food. It's linked to sustenance. And what each environment and each situation of dinner looks like tells you something else about it. They're just different versions of what Kriya Shema could be, which really means that they're different versions of what Avodas Hashem could be, my relationship with Hashem could be. So I think it's amazing because, like I said, the different people come together as a kehila, and there are, I'm terrible about this. I try to be, as good as I can. Somebody is compiling a list of all of my pet peeves. I told them that's all fine. Just you don't want to do it on a piece of paper, because you don't want to throw your back out afterwards. Do it like on a phone or on a laptop. Because so there's things that they just irk me. This, huh?
What's the top one?
Top one. I don't know. They're not ranked. They're not ranked in order. It's a jumble.
Yeah.
It's a jumble.
Depends on the time.
Everyone has that one thing.
Sometimes it depends on the time.
I do, but there are 20
Is
of
it
them.
happening now? That's why you're not.
No. But there are 20 of them that are all that one thing. And every time that's the one. That's the one that really gets under my skin. At least I'm self-aware enough to know that it's mostly Kleinigkeit. But at any rate, point is that when you're part of a kehila, I think this is absolutely the point. Being part of a kehila means that there are supposed to be people that you become unnerved by. There are supposed to be people that got under your skin. There's supposed to be people that rub you the wrong way. That's what it means. If everybody was the same, it would be easy. If it was easy, Vayichan Sham Yisrael Neged Hahar, Ki ish echad b'lev echad. If everybody was the same, it would be easy. Great line. Originally, I heard this from Rabbi Ephraim Goldberg. He heard it from Rabbi Steinsaltz. Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz, who was actually visiting Boca, and he mentioned, he said, like, what makes your shul special? And Rabbi Goldberg was telling him about, the diversity in the shul. And their tagline is, got to remember now, it is valuing diversity, celebrating unity. Valuing diversity, celebrating unity. So he tells this to Rabbi Steinsaltz. He says it was the most incredible thing. It was like an Erev Shabbos. He's standing in the kitchen of the house he's staying in, like making himself a coffee, listening with half an ear. English is not his first language, right? So valuing diversity, celebrating unity. And he goes, well, obviously, if you don't have diversity, then you don't have unity. You have uniformity. Oh, yeah. Unity is an avoda because there's diversity. And diversity doesn't just mean, isn't it so delightful when you go to Politz and you see so many different kinds of yarmulkes and so many different people, different stripes. No, diversity also means that there are people who do things that really get under my skin. That gufa is kahila. That's what it means. It means to be able to recognize that we are all bits of this one great neshama, and we have unity with one another. So, for one thing, I think it's amazing because it says that when you see somebody engaged in a mitzvah, you give them all the credit in the world, irrespective of where they are otherwise holding and what else they might be doing in life that just totally irks you. Like, this dude comes in, he thinks he's saying the same Kriya Shema that I am. I've been slaving away. I davka took off today because I was preparing that sugya, and I said this is going to be my learning day, and I'm on whatever it is. I'm on, I have 2 weeks of vacation. I've been in the base medrash every single day, and I've been up since 5 o'clock this morning, trying to learn. And now that this person comes in and he thinks he's going to say the same Kriya Shema as I am. Yeah. Mitzvahs are malleable in that regard. They are shavu l'chol nefesh in that regard. When the person without the yarmulke picks up the arba minim that Chabad is offering, when they put on tefillin maybe for the first time, they're like, it's the same tefillin, it's the same mitzvah, maybe even more, maybe even greater. And people are at it like a different, but don't be unnerved. Don't be annoyed by it. It's beautiful, it's exciting, it's wonderful, and stay in your lane. How do we paskin? We paskin, it requires Tara. It should really have Tara. Good for you. That you're holding by that level, that you're able to do it. You're able to engage in a greater degree of Tara than the other person sitting next to you 2 rows over, where not even in whatever it is. But celebrate what you're doing. That good for you. That's correct. That's the most correct.
Affecting you.
Even if it's
saying, should you say something to a person?
Saying something is something else. Look, listen. That's already the art of when you give chizuk and when you give musar and to what degree and how much.
Right.
Absolutely, we want to encourage people. We want to encourage people along the path of observance. 7 o'clock tomorrow evening, 2002 Ludlow Street at the Chevra in Philadelphia. We want to encourage people in there. But the point is, I think, without being condescending, without being pretentious. Good for me. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. Right. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. But this mitzvah that I'm engaged in, this is perfectly sized for all the other people in the room also.
Unless they park on the grass.
And then off with their heads.
Or
they're
dropping in the 18 minutes and parking on the
ground. That's what's crazy. That's why I know I'm crazy. Elad's thing is people are being Machal Shabbos. I don't care. So be Machal Shabbos. Stop parking on the grass. The old building, people would park on the grass sometimes. I'm like, hi, I'm sorry if you're late. This is the parking lot. Though you can't park on the grass like this is a trailer park. Park on go across the street. Anyway. Yeah, that's how I know that I'm a sugar, right? Elad's annoyed about Kol Shabbos, and I'm annoyed about parking on the grass. Okay, number one. Number two. We ourselves, I think, I don't know if it's every individual. I fall into every one of these categories. It just depends on the day. There are days that I am just the most horrific excuse for an Amaretz that ever walked around. And there are days that I've been mitaher myself like the Kaihanim in order to go and eat the Truma. There are days that I can just barely eke out a little bit of Mesinos in advance of performing a mitzvah and trying to reset and recognize, you're about to do something chashuv and holy here, maybe like take a little pivot. And even though everything else over the course of that day completely flies in the face of the statement that I'm about to make. And there are days that I'm proud of the work that I did today. I can't say it was so over the top holy. Can't say that it was the equivalent of being in a mikvah, but like what I did, whatever, like I got up in the morning and I went to shul and I said the words, and I said my brachos and I helped around the house and I helped with my kids and I was pretty patient and I was pretty okay. Do I feel that I'm the Kohen emerging from the mikvah now, newly minted with new Tara? No. It's not just when we're looking at other people. All of these people are us. These are different versions of who we are. And sometimes we can get to a point where we're just embarrassed because of that fall from grace, because it's a backslide, because I remember where I was 2 weeks ago, where I was around the Yom Tovim, where I was around Hanukkah. I was so holy in Hanukkah. Like, what happened? Just not that person anymore. And I'm embarrassed to go back before HaKadosh Baruch Hu and pretend like I can even somehow or another like pick up where we left off, kind of, sort of, or still go through those same motions. No. It's tailor-made for you. It's tailor-made for you in that moment, in that matzav, in that situation. It's not just that we have to. We paskin, yes, you have to keep ascending. But l'maisa, we don't. And what happens when we don't? Does that mean that we now stand on the sidelines and I can't look at myself in the mirror? How can HaKadosh Baruch Hu ever look at me? Or is it that, I was once that and I hope to get back there, but right now where I stand, I'm the ani. Right now where I stand, I have no das, I'm a total ignoramus, I have no kedusha, I have no tara, the things that I did over the course of the past 24 hours, and now I'm going to go and say Kriya Shema? Yes. Yes, you, yes, me, yes, us, yes. We're every single version. We have to continue to surge towards, this is how we paskin. Halacha l'maisa, I'm supposed to be like the Kohen. I got to keep on moving towards that eventuality. I'm not always that. And even once I've tasted that, sometimes I revert a little bit. You still say Kriya Shema. You still engage.
I'm trying to
Still engage in the conversation.
Shemona Esrei, because we say Shemona Esrei 3 times a day. It's the same exact thing, and it's like this is the difference. Like we say, Mincha and Maharav Shemona Esrei. We could say it like in our show we say it like 15 minutes apart from each other or something like that.
Right.
But it's like
It's rough. It's really hard.
This is a little bit later.
Yeah.
This other was a little bit earlier.
Right.
This is how we're supposed to feel at Mincha versus Maharav. And is that kind of how we approach Shemona Esrei, where it's like, okay, we had a bad Shemona Esrei like 15 minutes ago, but now we're going to do a good one or something like that? Or
I think it's how we approach everything.
Right.
It's how we approach everything. I had a bet, right? I mean, I don't know. Have you ever really, really, really appreciated the second Seder? Like, I'm sorry, I feel awkward saying that. like I really appreciate being in Chutz La'aretz. I really appreciate, Gullus. It's really, but Lamaisa, haven't you,
Right.
like you have a second chance, like really get it right, and the first night you're totally bombed out and totally exhausted and overworked and harried. 4 cups of wine, and then but it's true of parenting. I really botched parenting yesterday. I really botched it.
I thought you were gonna say I really watched the first kid. Now do it right for the second.
Yeah.
It's kind of.
Yeah, hopefully Avigail will turn out okay. I'm sorry to the others, but
I'm the oldest in my family. My mother was always like, kids are like pancakes. You always mess up the first one.
there is something there about like the balance or the equilibrium of like, time versus talent, right? You lack in talent, you have in time. You lack in time, you hopefully have in talent. But even so, meaning it's like, we've all seen the graph, right? Growth doesn't look like this, right? Growth looks like,
It's never linear.
right, it looks like this. There are these deep, pockets. And even what is absolutely worst is when a dip becomes a tailspin. I think that's where this comes in. I've had a dip. How do I say Kriya Shema? How do I let those words come out of me? Oh, Hashem, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. I think, by the way, it's an interesting thing to think about. I don't know when it started, that Kriya Shema. It may have begun with Rabbi Akiva. It may have been earlier than that. It may have really been later than that. I don't know when Kriya Shema, when Shema Yisrael became the martyr's anthem.
It wasn't. Okay. Oh.
When did that happen? The accounts from the reports from the concentration camps, about people being marched to their known deaths, saying Kriya Shema, singing Ani Mamin and saying Kriya Shema. When exactly did that happen? I don't know. But for us in our generation, it's inescapable. That's inescapable. Well, that's what those words mean in our minds. So I'm going to say those words right now after and I pretended to justify it at the time, but after I said that and after I spoke that way and after I did that thing, that was, those words were terrible, and it was lashon. And after I said that, after I watched that, after I saw that, after I thought that, after I ate that, after that behavior, that's where I'm holding. I'm gonna reach for what those holy martyrs recited when they were dying al Kiddush Hashem. I can't. You can. You could be an absolute ani. Doesn't matter. It's for you. The road to success, it begins to be paved right now. I think it's an awesome piece. I don't know what he has in mind, by the way. Meaning a few, just in terms of the actual analysis of it.
Is there a continuation? Does he bring it home?
No, and it's true of many of these. I find that
style?
it's almost like Orot from Rav Kook.
Letting it. Yeah.
They're like these ideas. They're like these flashes.
inspiration.
There is something. It's funny. I was actually just doing a piece in my shir in the Masivta that I'm thinking about maybe skipping because maybe it dovetails with this a little bit, but that seemingly picks up on this idea, at least on what I think is the idea, that it's that I don't know how else to say it. Cut yourselves a little slack.
Yes, it sounds like his approach is the opposite. It's that he's not saying don't try it. You don't have to get 100% every time, but
Right.
you could get 100% sometimes.
But I love that it's both. I love
Right.
that it's both. I guess my analysis of it is this. If he's telling me that this is the halacha, then why does he spend so much time on all this beautiful poetry about, and that's what this means? Is this really just this hezbollah of the Gemara? Is it just pure sheer Talmud Torah? I don't think so. Notice what's happening, that we're couching Kriya Shema in this ramp up in terms of who you can be on the spiritual escalator. How do we paskin? We paskin, you're supposed to be the Kohen. So what does that mean? What if I'm not? Does that mean that I never fulfilled Kriya Shema? That also can't be. So that's what I think is happening, meaning that we need to be capable of setting goals and having ideals and continuing to surge forward and move towards those goals and those ideals, and not always just letting ourselves off the hook and not always absolving ourselves of any and all guilt. If you never have any guilt, then you'll never be better. You'll never do better. But at the same time, it's a process. You're in progress. Wherever you are, don't harp on, I can't believe this is where I am. You should be saying Kriya Shema. You should be pausing, you should be thinking about Kodesh Baruch, and you should be saying Kriya Shema. And the next day, you want the entirety of the day to become more aligned with those words that you have said and that you know that you're going to say. And you get hopefully to the point of being a Kohen. Then the corkscrew starts all over again. Wherever it is that you're holding, I'm sure Rav Chaim Kanievsky considered himself to be an Amoritz. How can you not? How could anybody be that dedicated to Torah and appreciate the full expanse of Torah and push themselves day in, day out, and not honestly and genuinely realize that what I actually know is a tipa min hayam compared to the entirety of the whole corpus of Torah? So who is the biggest Hamaretz in the world? Rav Chaim Kanievsky. Because he recognized that more than anybody else.
I had a Rebbe who would say the all-star hitter hits 36% of the time.
Yeah.
He makes contact with the ball.
Right.
Like this.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty good. I
Yeah.
like catching things in that. Yeah, I've heard I think about this a lot. My wife once did a parenting workshop a number of years ago, where the woman teaching the course said 80%. Got to be an 80% parent. I think they're both true. Meaning, in any given moment, how do we paskin? No, you need to be better than that. Okay, but I'm not. So now what do? Say Kriya Shema. That's just real. That's real life. That's how it's going to be. And don't allow the dip to become the tailspin. But also don't pretend like the dip isn't something that you have to try to climb out of. That there isn't a summit that we're actually gunning for.
So Rabbi Nachman has this whole Torah. It's called. He says in order to serve Hashem properly, a person needs to be baki in two mahalchim, two Torahs. Baki b'ratzo, baki b'shov. What does that mean? Tachlis, it means Baki Beretzo is like when things are going your way, when you're feeling it, Gadlus Amochin, you know, like your energy's good, your relationships are good, you know, you're connecting, you're passionate about going to tefillah, and like when that happens, you need to go for it, like put the pedal to the metal. But that's only half of the avoda. Like if you're an expert at that, you're at 50%, like, you know, good. The other 50% is Baki B'Shov, which is when nothing is going
You
your
stub
way.
your toe.
Right.
Yeah, like anything you try, you're just like hitting, you know, like your wife's relationship, your tefillah, your davening, your business. It's just like you can't catch a break.
Right.
So he says there, it's a whole different mahala. Like you don't approach it, you don't put the pedal to the metal there. You have to. He says you have to slow down. You have to be patient. You have to acknowledge and accept that Hashem is putting the
This
stop
is what
sign.
it is. Yeah. It's similar to, there's a piece from an early piece in Ali Shore where he's really quoting from Rabbeinu Tam in Sefer Yashar, where he speaks about this idea of, he calls it Yimei Ha'ava v'Yimei Ha'Sina, but it's a very similar concept. There are days when everything's just rocking, all cylinders. It's great. And his point is that, it sounds like the same, that by definition, that's not going to be forever. It's not supposed to be forever, because there's a whole other dimension to my avoda that I'm supposed to be able to work on. If I never get those opportunities, like failing with grace, something that you'll never be able to work on and never be able to accomplish as a person, as a balavoda, as a whatever, a ben aliyah, if you're never actually given those challenges. Yeah.
And I think it's empowering because it's like, it's not like, oh, like I had such good kavanah yesterday and now I just like my mind's scattered about this, that, and I can't even focus on the words in front of me. It's like Baruch Hashem, like I have this opportunity to like serve Hashem in this place of bilbul,
Right.
this place of confusion.
Yes.
And like Hashem, this is what Hashem wants. Hashem doesn't want me to like transform myself in 4 seconds and beat myself up like why don't I have the kavanah of yesterday. Like no, like he wants me to like
How does this person act when the chips are down?
yeah. Like I'm not like stop beating myself up and just be like okay, like at least like what are the nekudas tovos? Like what can I actually like Baruch Hashem? I'm not like I'm staying in davening and I'm not going to my car and just whatever doom scrolling when that's what I want to do. Like find like the little bit of light and like that can help. Like instead of beating yourself up, it can totally transform the whole.
There's the Misa, I forget which Rebbe it was. There were so many Rebbes who were in jail. Baruch Hashem, it's mostly a thing of the past. But there was two Rebbes in jail.
I think
I
everybody.
don't remember who it was. And,
Rav
one
Zusha and
wanted to daven, but he couldn't.
with the pail.
With the pail, yeah, yes, right.
Yeah,
Wanted to daven with the pail, right? It was the bathroom. It was like the chamber pot, so he couldn't daven. He's like, oh, so he starts crying. Why are you crying? Because I want to daven. I can't daven. Why do you want to daven? Because that's my avodah. No. Have you ever had the avodah in your life of not being able to daven because you're in a makom tina? That's your avodah right now. Celebrate that. And he started doing a tance. Yeah.
And then like the
Shkoyach.
jail guards walked in and
Right.
they said
They
what
took-
happened.
right.
And he took it away.
They took it away.
So
They
why
took
was
it away.
he dance? They took it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's